This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Deadite time is here. That's right, we're talking about Evil Dead Rise on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from some condemned apartment block in downtown LA. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we are dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters, and we're going to unpack all the goriest details of Evil Dead Rise in the hopes that an unfortunate neighbor's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there is only one person that I trust to make sure to spin me right round, baby, right round, like a translation of a Necronomicon style book on a record, though. Right round, the one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Yeah, I was going to ask. I know that you discovered hip hop as a teenager, and,
I did,
yes. And it made a big impression on you.
I was the Christopher Columbus of hip hop. This is what they won't tell you in the media. This white kid from Glendale discovered hip hop.
I don't mean that you personally discovered the music genre hip hop. I mean, of course not. You embraced it.
Yes. It found me, and I got very into it. My apologies for my riff. Now, please proceed.
Have you ever tried like scratching or DJing?
Yes, but only on a single turntable. And
did you ever accidentally communicate with demons?
No, my neighbor though did want to resurrect demons by playing a record backwards, and it just sounded stupid.
Well, you weren't playing the right records. They're not all of them.
Yeah. And then I unintentionally stole his Billy Joel album.
Unintentionally?
I did. I was looking at it, and I was looking at a bunch of his tapes, and I must have absentmindedly put it in my pocket. And then I was mortified that I had left it, and I did not know how to get it back to him without admitting such a terrible social error. And I tried to lower it over the wall between us as a way to get around this. I eventually just had to fess up that I had absentmindedly put it in my pocket when I should have put it back where it was supposed to go. Because as we have discovered recently in our private communications, I am not what people would call the biggest Billy Joel fan.
No, nor am I. I was going to say you still have the cassette to this day because you were never able to admit your crime.
No, I just had to replace it somehow. No, I was able to admit that. Whereas I was also, before I found hip hop, I vacillated between just about any sort of music that passed my fancy. I had no barometer or taste whatsoever. And then once I heard Ice-T on the Breakin' soundtrack, it was all over, baby.
But still, you did not open up a doorway to the devil.
No, at least not a devil that tormented me and my family or possessed me or combined me into multiple people to hunt down other family members. That's quite unique to this.
Yes.
Although I did enjoy a variation on the traditional reel-to-reel that we usually get.
Yes.
And I think that's the crux of this. You know, we've talked about many a franchise over the course of this show's 9-year history, right? We started with Friday the 13th. We moved on to a Nightmare on Elm Street. We stumbled our way into the Scream franchise. We did Alien and Final Destination, 2 franchises which are never coming back. Oh no!
Just they pull
they
me.
Are.
Just when I'm out, they pull me back.
Well, I have yanked Bloodlines in and out of the schedule several times, but we're amending how we approach new release movies.
Yeah, I am humbly requesting that you let me just watch that at home.
I'll let you do whatever you wish. This is a democracy.
I mean, I don't. It's going to be playing at the Alamo near me, so I'm not going to have to pay anything for it. I'm just going to have to, waste. It may not even end up being wasting precious time, but I am going to actually have to leave my house to go see it.
As we just, last week we did a Sinners episode, not because we didn't want to immediately talk about Sinners, but we felt that we needed to give our listening audience a little more time to see a movie before we discussed it. Because while they do very good numbers eventually, if we do it too fast or we choose wrong, Wolfman, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, well, and also Sinners is doing so well on word of mouth and repeat viewings that even waiting for it to go, scheduling it for the end of the month, it's going to be fine. The interest is still going to be there.
But going forward, I think we're going to give things a little time to resonate and determine from that moment on whether or not that's a main feed worthy thing. So movies that we would absolutely cover right out the gate, your Megan 2.0s, your Bloodlines, and so forth. We're gonna simmer a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we also have just a very busy summer and fall coming our way because as of the time we're recording this, we just learned the release date for the Alien Earth series.
And we just learned that Timmy Elephant's going to be in it. I had no idea.
He looks like a sexy Lorne Green.
I was going to say he's got a little bit of a Rutger and Blade Runner thing going on. I don't hate it. Yeah. I don't hate it.
And we have the Predator, another Predator movie coming out that we're going to have to figure out where to cover. And so it's very, very busy. But that being said, this is a rueful farewell to season 5, as this will round out our coverage of the Evil Dead franchise, which I'm a little upset about. That we know now that there's another movie coming our way, so we will cover that whenever it eventually arrives, sometime in 2026 is what we've been told. But this is one of those franchises that, unlike some of them that have high highs and low lows, I think I don't think this is a brave statement. Evil Dead is one of our best franchises.
Yeah, no, these are all solid gold bangers.
Even the ones that I vacillated with at the time, the original film 2013 upon my first, viewing, and then coming around to it to the point where it makes me weep openly. Evil Dead Rise was a little bit different for me in the sense that I just didn't know exactly what to expect from it. I'd seen Lee Cronin's previous film, The Hole in the Ground, and had said, wow, that guy knows how to create a shot. I'm not sure I love that particular motion picture, as it came in a sort of deluge of elevated horrors, and it felt a little rounded at the edges, a little soft focus. It didn't have the narrative drive that I like out of some movies in that subgenre, your Night Houses, if you will, your House of the Devils. But when I did see this in the theater, I thought, wow, this is a franchise that's being allowed to evolve. It still is self-referential and everything, but it's just a little bit different, but it's just a little bit the same. It just simply has the right balance of elements that allows you to explore different areas and subgenres within Evil Dead.
I would say it's probably even more brutal than 2013 because, man, we're bringing kids into it. And this is the first time we've ever brought kids into it.
As much as 2013 is a real evocation, like what they wanted to do, as we talked about in that episode, was to live up to the ultimate experience in grueling horror. I would say they picked up their foot off the gas of grueling so much, but put it into a completely different gear, which is, as you mentioned, involving children, which is just not something we've seen within this franchise. And within that scope, even though 2013 does have a family relationship, it's between, siblings. Here we add to the siblings with children and one of the women discovering that she's newly pregnant, but also making sure as to not make this an unintentional Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5 situation. I'm very thankful for that because this could have gone in a very specific direction. And I feel like it's just a capacity of what her experience is rather than the point of the movie.
Even by the end of it, she's an instant mother anyway, because she and this small child are literally the only survivors of this, of this demonic onslaught.
I think this is interestingly cast. If I had any gripe, and I don't really feel like, movies deserve to take their licks regardless of what I feel about them necessarily. I would say if there was one small gripe I have about this movie, it is everyone's insanely loose grasp on the American dialect.
I don't know why they just didn't have this and take place in Brisbane. Why are we trying to fool? It's almost entirely Australian cast and crew. Why are we trying to pass them off as Americans?
I mean, we know that these books can go through portals because in Army of Darkness he ends up in fucking Britain.
Right, you can make this in Sydney. It's okay.
Right. It's really okay. But like that cabin in the very first cold open does not look American in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing about that vista that reads Kentucky. No.
The building's supposed to be Los Angeles, right?
It is supposed to be Los Angeles. So I'm not really sure.
So it's supposed to be somewhere
where that cabin is.
It's supposed to be somewhere in Southern California because the girl at the end in the parking garage is the girl from the beginning of the movie.
Yes. So that is supposed to be somewhere in the Angeles forest or something. I don't know, man.
Which, if you read a lot of the comments about people who griped about this movie, did not get that. That's who that girl is at the end. They're like,
really?
Oh, it's pointless opener, and we don't know who these people are. And it's like, fucking God Almighty! You might have seen in the Flophouse group today. They posted an article about how movies these days are too literal and overly explain things to the audience.
Right.
And it's like, well, you know what? If you read the comments on YouTube posts and Facebook posts about movies, a lot of people need things fucking explained to them.
And you go on to YouTube and you would just put any film with explained afterwards and you will see dozens of fucking people trying to explain the Minecraft movie to you. And it's like, if you didn't get it the first time, I don't know what, and I know how to help you. I'm not
sure why you need a movie that's made for 10-year-olds explained to you.
Listen, if you want to have a conversation with your child, but it would be one thing if it was just that film, but it is truly
it's literally every movie right now has like somebody explaining the ending, probably in some cases inaccurately.
Just misleading the public with false truths, which is not something that America is good at or enjoys or wants to see more of, as witnessed by our current golden era that we're all living through, Gina.
Yes, exactly.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
So before we, encapsulate Evil Dead and where it is for us as a franchise, let's give this particular movie its due, something I think it is owed. It was quite a surprise how well it did, simply because of its genesis. It was not meant to end up in theaters, and therefore its success was viewed as outside the norm, even though 2013 had done very, very well. In fact, this entry was not really supposed to be here. There were a few unsuccessful attempts to create a direct sequel to 2013's Evil Dead, including splitting up the scenarios so that Mia's movie would go in one direction, and then there would be an Ash movie, and then the seventh film would be a meeting of those two timelines into a monster mash, as it were. What did we get instead? We got 3 seasons of Ash versus Evil Dead, which is very funny and has tender moments, but is really goofy and enjoyably goofy as far as I'm concerned. Whereas 2013's director Fede Alvarez focused on Don't Breathe, which I would say is very good. The Girl in the Spiderweb, which is quite bad. Don't Breathe 2, never seen it, and developed what would become Texas Chainsaw Massacre for Netflix, a movie I refuse to believe is real.
Wait, is that the 2021?
Yes.
Oh dear God! It's funny that that you bring this up because I don't really professionally review movies anymore. I've taken a semi-permanent sabbatical from it, but
Sure.
I reviewed both the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie and Evil Dead Rise. And yeah, that Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is some hot garbaggio.
It is. Now, in fairness to Fede Alvarez, he did not direct it. He was just part of, I think at one point he was going to, and then moved off of that to direct Alien Romulus, which again is very good. Is a very good movie. I enjoy the hell out of that movie. I watched it again a few weeks ago, and I stand by my analysis. Alien is back until Alien Earth ruins it. One assumes. I don't know. I'm hoping it's great, but I'm not going to put any onus on it of being one thing or the other. We have yet to discuss whether or not we're going to cover it in some way, shape, or form. But the last time we tried to cover a concurrent TV show of a franchise, we ended up trying to do, what was it?
Was it Clarice or The Stand? I can't remember which
The
one
Stand, and we covered one episode of Clarice on Patreon.
Right, and then we also covered one episode of The Stand, and then I died.
Yes, technically two episodes of The Stand.
You know what? I all I remember is that we talked to Bo and Megan about it. I remember nothing.
I'm not sure I've left it up.
The only thing I remember about the series itself is that they wussed out on casting a fat Harold Long.
Yeah, listen. Between that and a plus sized Carrie White, these are things we can't seem to do for whatever reason.
No. Are you saying you don't want to? You want to get tied up in a series because it might kill me again?
I'm a little fearful. Yes.
I mean, me being close to my transplant, maybe we shouldn't tempt fate.
I do believe we should cover it. Maybe not as it goes, because I feel like that is where we tempt fate. Because we were like, we don't have anything else to do. Why don't we add this to our rotation? It'll just be an excuse for four friends to talk to one another, and then you died.
Yeah, well, that was at a time. Also, it was still the pandy, and we all had a lot of extra time on our hands. And, with the way your job is, it is difficult to commit to, okay, this episode aired like last night. We got to do this episode today.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that we're trying to avoid. This goes back to doing brand new movies while they're still in theaters. Is we're not critics, so we don't really have any skin in the game of being among the first to cover this.
I mean, we've done it because we wanted to hop on these things because we were we were excited about them.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really seem to impact our numbers much either way. So, I mean, whether we wait, a month or a week. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine just doing a general, overview of the series, especially if it's a limited series. But I don't know that we need to do a recap episode.
Yes. That's what I wonder about. And we're going to discuss another show that we may or may not recap at the end of this episode. So let's put a pin in it, everybody, because it's not the end of this discussion. Speaking of creating streaming series, another issue with coming up with a sequel to 2013's Evil Dead was that Sam Raimi re-entered the film game in terms of directing a Marvel movie, and then he created a completely different series for what was at the time Quibi, and then eventually the majority of its episodes aired on Tubi. So pick your ubi carefully.
It's Poob. You can find it on Poob.
Find it on an ubi of some kind.
Jesus God.
Is 50 States of Fright, something I have not watched one iota of.
Go back to beginning our conversation at the beginning of the episode. So 13 or 14-year-old Patrick, it's like someday there's going to be 800 channels where you can watch whatever you want at any time. But also you're going to have to learn words like Tubi and Quibi and Vimo and Fandango.
Just the very idea that Quibi was meant to be like entertainment on your phone that you could watch either way, and that it was supposed to be quick bites is where they got Quibi out of, and it failed during a worldwide pandemic. That's how little people wanted that.
Yeah, it's like that does not seem like something I want at all.
No, I don't want it either. I don't want narrative on my fucking phone. I like expertise and I like skills on display. I had to learn TikTok for my job. And, every once in a while I'm like, I'm going to do this more. And then I never find time in the day to do it because I'm too much of a fucking perfectionist about it. That being said, this Ubi series, it featured director Lee Cronin. And that is where he and Sam Raimi hook up, and they decide to join forces to develop a movie that at the time was referred to as Evil Dead Now, which would eventually become Rise. We talked about Lee Cronin's The Hole in the Ground, which is also a film about shit you find in a hole that replaces you involving your family. So it's actually a pretty easy match between movie maker and material when it comes to Evil Dead Rise. Rise was originally set to premiere on HBO Max when such an app, speaking of apps that no longer exist.
Yes.
And in a feat of marketing genius, they decided to erase all of the good feelings you have about HBO and replace it with whatever the fuck Max is. But this movie, when it's completed and test marketed, did so well in those screenings, they ended up releasing it in 2013. It cost under $20 million. It did about 150 worldwide. It was a success, and such a success that another movie that was originally aimed to be a Max original, Final Destination Bloodline, was slotted for a 2025 release. And as of this recording, will be released on Friday, but it'll be several weeks after that when this is being heard. My impulse into this was putting Evil Dead in an urban situation. Well, that's going to be a very different kettle of fish. And it is and it isn't. I think the miraculous thing about this movie in some ways is that it finds a very understandable way to isolate our protagonists without making it feel artificial and stupid. I think there's only one incident in which they shout out a window at an unhoused person, and not since Hide and Go Shriek have unhoused people been so deaf to the cries of need and help from others.
Yeah, I mean, I've been caught in some torrential rainstorms, but I don't think I would. The rain's been coming down so heavily that I would not be able to hear someone you screaming for help directly above my head.
Yeah.
One thing I do like about this movie is it does fuck with you in a sense of, okay, they're either on the 4th floor or on the 900th floor of this building, because it's like, okay, they how trapped are they in this building?
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting component of this, because it's not only are they trapped because they're so high up, but because an earthquake occurs, the steps of their building, which is condemned and due to be bulldozed in a month, they're trapped both in the sense that they can't get out of the building due to a natural emergency, and the fact that the majority of people have already moved out of the building, and those that are left are kind of stragglers, and the earthquake has also downed everyone's cell phones. So it kind of takes that element out of it, and it becomes more of an isolation thing of, you know, how exactly do you get down when the elevator is not reliable, and, you know, at a certain point is the cause of the Deadite possession of Ellie. So no one really knows that, but they kind of sense that you shouldn't go in that elevator. And then it turns out you should not go in that elevator.
Well, yeah, but then there's a reveal that there's a power outage, but it's only affecting their building, possibly only their apartment. And the real strange thing is this girl at the end of the movie, who's the same girl at the beginning of the movie, even though people apparently did not realize this.
Well, she has a hat on. She's a completely different person, Gina.
Who apparently, I assume she lives in the same building because she's in the parking garage, but, you know, only seems to barely remark on anything that's happened the night before.
She has slept very soundly through this, is my guess.
So it's like, you know, it is messing with your sort of perspective over, okay, are these people actually trapped, or are the elements and the Deadites working against them to make them think that they are?
I think their exodus is impacted to the same degree as anyone in the previous cabins. And Ash is isolated from what would normally help him because he's transported to a different time and place. So all Evil Dead has some form of isolation. This just has the trickier setup of putting it in a city center. And then I think it's somewhat helped, maybe not in its plot, but in the feeling you get, in that none of this building actually exists. Like, they just filmed it in a warehouse in New Zealand. And so you don't really feel Los Angeles in this movie. You're told by context clues it's Los Angeles, but you would never fucking know this is downtown LA. It's random. The elements that put it together are an earthquake and a TV broadcast.
Yeah, so it's already sort of in you know, out of time and place, and you got this weird, like, hidden bank vault that for some reason has a Jesus statue in it. And we get I think this is at least our second movie this year where there's been a Jesus jump scare.
Yes, it is the year of Jesus jump scares. He's coming at you. We just haven't had it in 3D. That's the only thing missing. Evil Dead Rise isolates our main cast in the middle of a major city, and because of that natural disaster, it cuts them off from the rest of the world. So we don't have to worry about cell phones. We don't have to worry about first responders. They're practically abandoned by society, as it were. And so the building is sort of starved for occupants because most of them have tried to get out while the getting's good. There's no point to stay. It's just that Ellie and her family are kind of stuck because their major breadwinner has taken off and refuses to pay any form of child support. And Ellie is, again, isolated from normal society. She's raising 3 children on her own in a condemned building that she can't sell or gain anything from moving. She's in a tough fucking pickle. And then I think the fact that the movie all came together during the pandemic feels very present within the plot, yet it never manifests the way so many other post-pandemic films do, with like the sort of John Carpenter's The Thing, we're all very tired and no one knows who to trust. Trust actually is not a major driver within the story. Rather, you see neighbors who are introduced and they quickly come together to each other's aid. Various people are presented and you wonder, oh, is that older guy who's constantly smoking going to become like a major problem? And that's not really ever true. Like, some of his ideas aren't the greatest, but he's not a bad person by any stretch of the imagination. It never really falls into the sort of post-pandemic tropes that ended up plaguing a lot of other narratives. Sometimes it's used very well. Sometimes it feels like I've seen this too many times already. We need to find a new way to do that. And I think Rise does that with aplomb.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly the first Evil Dead movie in which outsiders have attempted to help the people who are at the mercy of the Deadites and are dispatched of very quickly.
Yeah.
I do think that this was another one that, you know, and I keep, you know, as much as I don't hate it, actually, that's a lie. I run over the same old ground of how certain horror movies land with certain horror fan contingencies. And you'll be unsurprised that this one did not do particularly well with traditional, let's call them, male horror fans. And I'm going to take a wild guess that that's because virtually all of the cishet male characters, because there is a trans character, one of Ellie's children is, I don't know if in script the character is trans, but the actor is.
Right. The performer is.
Yes. Yeah. That would be Danny, the one whose fault this all is ultimately.
Yes, but I almost, well, listen, let's put a pin in that.
Danny is like 15. I can't really fault a 15-year-old for being, you know, interested in finding some, you know, weird, possibly demonic text and fucking with it. I probably would have at that age, but
yeah, I think this is the most motivated a person who has caused all of this has ever been to cause all of this. Whereas most of the time, it's some college fuck up, some dude who thinks he knows better ends up playing this fucking, you know, tape and leafing through a book made out of human skin and like nothing bad could happen fucking here. Whereas Danny knows that his family needs money. And here's this building that was originally a bank, and all of a sudden this earthquake happens and he can see a vault. And he's like, well, it'd just be crazy for me to not go in there and just see if there weren't just, you know, some random bags of cash or gold coins lying around. And wouldn't you know it, there's surprise Jesus lunging at you.
Yeah, and a book that bites you when you try to pry it open. But other than that, perfectly normal.
Right.
But to get back to my point, so the cishet male characters are all various neighbors. You've got this old man. You got these 2 teenage boys that clearly have a crush on Ellie's teenage daughter, and then there's a young adult male. They all try to help. They're all almost immediately killed.
Yes.
And that's it. It's like, and you know what? I think that people don't like that when, you know, all of the men are killed immediately.
I will say, but none of them really present like this massive problem. Like in Evil Dead 2, you have these 2 sets of independent from one another people descending upon this cabin. The later group obviously views Ash covered in blood as having killed off, you know, the explorer parents whom they were supposed to meet. And so there's distrust right away. And there's distrust inherent to Army of Darkness because Ash comes out of nowhere, out of a vortex. He speaks strangely. He's arrived with a car. He's got a chainsaw attached to a missing limb. Like, there's not a lot you're just going to glom on to as a medieval individual. So I enjoy the zag here of not making these people inherent dangers or distrusting in any way, shape, or form.
No, they're just
nor do they outstay their welcome.
No, they're just trying to help and they get killed.
So what you have really is Ellie kind of stuck by circumstance. Like you can tell that she's gearing up to make money somehow. It certainly appears like she was a tattoo artist at some point who gave up on that to basically raise these children. Now her husband has left and she's trying to solder together her old tattoo gun to sort of get back in the game. At least that's a skill that she has that she can exploit. Danny is the one who goes into the bank vault to look for, loose. He's literally probably doing the most DJ thing in the world, which is to dig in crates. He just happens to find a book with teeth. And then you have Bridget, who is the even-keeled middle daughter here. But even she, as the movie goes on, develops a demonic eating disorder, like so many young women, setting aside the whole demonic part. But it all feels like real motivated circumstance is what drives them into these dangerous situations. They don't ask for the danger necessarily. And Danny's his motivation to figure out what the fuck this is entirely born out of, well, what can I make out of this to help my family who's in desperate need? Like, at least there's an explanation for the behavior. And he's one of the few who feels bad about it.
Oh,
Gina?
yeah. I mean, you've got, what was Lou Taylor Pucci's character's name in Evil, 2013 Evil Dead. I can't remember his character, but anyway,
guy who suffers a whole fucking life.
Yeah, guy who gets like a face full of like syringes. Yeah, he's just very like he opens a book. Don't open this book. I'm gonna open it anyway. It's just like,
Eric was his name.
Yeah, Eric. And then after all the shit goes down, not once do you say, "Gee, I shouldn't open that book. I'm really sorry, guys."
He just keeps showing up to kind of figure out in media res what's going on and then get stabbed another time. And you're like, yay? Again, that movie is about suffering. It's about going through something to come out the other side.
When Eric has a lot of gets nail gunned in the arm, I winced, but this I'm like, yeah, you know what, you shouldn't open that fucking book.
You should not have opened that fucking book.
When Danny gets a knife through the bicep, I'm like, ooh, don't hurt that child.
That is the thing. Like, I don't think to the level of Evil Dead 2013 being the highest level of grueling, I think this is that is one or two steps below that. Although it does give you that in relation to the fact that there are children involved.
Yeah, I mean, it does not. The only person that's really spared is the youngest kid.
Yes,
but both those kids, they get killed. And not pleasantly.
Yes,
and I mean, I think for me, honestly, Bridget swallowing that broken glass. And you can see it poking through with the skin in her neck. I'm like, okay, I think this might be the limit for me.
I think this might be the first time that the outlandish supernatural elements of it have affected me more than some of the physical effects. In 2013, you get so much of that. I'm going to carve my face open to feel what carving human flesh is like, Deadite behavior. And in here, I think when Bridget starts coughing up the demonic ink out of her mouth and it crawls like bugs, I've seen this a couple times, and every time I crawl into the smallest corner near me, I can't fucking handle it. And I think this is one of the few times where the supernatural element really gets to me on a creepy crawly factor.
Yeah, think I wanted to bring up when right after Ellie is possessed, as she's like just throwing the eggs into the pan and talking about this dream that she had, and you could tell that it's the Deadite trying to sound like a normal person.
Yes.
But like slurring and like stumbling on words, and it's like she almost sounds like she had a stroke, and it's like it's very, very unsettling.
And I think this movie really takes a very specific approach. And I've sort of encompassed it as like no one tortures you like your family, right? This is something that no one necessarily asked for. We're all a part of it to some degree. And it's also interesting, worth noting that the film is developed in the final years of Trump 1.0. And at this point, we all probably know of or have personal experience with a family member or family members that you once knew and trusted being transformed into a rage bait monster, willing to sacrifice loved ones for just one shot of liberal tears. And I think that is an engine in here, that people that you inherently are drawn to, that you genuinely love, they're like, what if we all suffer? What if we just make a world of suffering? Wouldn't that be great? And you're like, motherfucker, I used to hang out with you in the back of a station wagon. Why are you doing this?
You wonder, it's like, okay, this is a completely different person
that you knew so well, but practically overnight, they're transformed into this very different person with very different views of what is normal. And you still have the standard Deadite thing of like, I'm going to taunt you and I'm going to make you misplace confidences and I'm going to pervert our personal allegiances. And certainly 2013 ventured into some of that territory, since Mia and David have a sibling relationship that's really more explored in terms of avoidance and abandonment. Whereas Rise, picks up that thread and then starts to saw through it, through multiple bones as well, as Allie and her kids are on the verge of this outsized financial ruin, potential homelessness. And then you have Beth wandering in from the cold and her worrying about her career as a touring guitar tech. Not that that's nothing, but that's really being tested by her realization that she's pregnant. And she's so focused on that personal story of what she's going through. Like, there's plenty of solutions for that. But in this circumstance, she wanders into a family unit that's like, we've got bigger shit going on. And Beth kind of like, oh, this was going to be about me. And it turns out, perhaps I should focus on you instead. And it doesn't take her long to do that. She doesn't have to be forced into it necessarily. Once she realizes that she is not the main character in what's happening here, she very quickly goes into support mode.
Unfortunately, Ellie doesn't want it at this point because she has, and again, this is something we've all experienced at some point in our lives where we reached out to someone in a trying time, and for whatever reason they did not respond, and then pop up later and say like, hey, what did I miss? And it's like, if you had answered your fucking phone call voicemails, you would have known what you missed. I mean, it's like, I tried to tell you 2 months ago what you were missing.
Yes. And then she listened to it and realizes, oh, I was so wrapped up in this thing that I wanted, that I needed, that was about me, that I really fucked up my relationship with my sister and with her kids who I genuinely care for. And I need to fucking find a way to fix this. And it does not take her long. Like, people don't have to become possessed for her to start apologizing. But it's not long after she apologizes that everything goes off the fucking rails anyhow.
Yeah. I mean, the Deadites here aren't fucking around when Ellie has died, or we think she has died. The human Ellie has died. Yes. And the first fucking thing that Deadite does is just activate her phone to play that voicemail. Yeah. And I'm like, ooh, that's like, it's like, okay, this is this is not going to go well for anyone.
I keep comparing it to 2013, possibly because it's the last one we covered and everything. But I think they really do work in tandem with one another. As I mentioned before, like the goal of 2013 was to live up to the tagline, the ultimate experience in grueling horror. Whereas I think Rises is attempting to harness Evil Dead 2's mantra of evil comes in many forms. And throughout this, various forms of media are transformed into ways to torture the people that you love, either, on purpose or inadvertently. They're all used in some way, shape, or form to cause harm that shouldn't be caused in the first place. And I find it interesting that they found this new gear for a franchise that is quite old and established at this point. There are very few franchises that are truly able to adapt, and some franchises cannot take the strain. We were supposed to get a brand new Saw movie this year, and I know that's odd for me to say, the person who perhaps dislikes Saw the most of anybody on Earth, and yet that last Saw movie we saw, they finally fucking figured it out.
It took 10 fucking movies.
10 movies.
To finally perfect the recipe.
And then they're like, oh, we got it. We'll just we've grafted it onto this, and this can carry us forward in a really interesting direction. And then part of the producers were like, no, it's got to be dumb trash. We got to get a Wahlberg to make a friend out of a rat to make money at this. Like, no, you just made money doing it the right way. You tried the other shit multiple times and you rebooted it twice, and it still fucking failed until you did this.
Exactly.
But it just puts Evil Dead in a rare breed. So I would put this up there with Scream and with its ability to transform over time, and I would put it up there with Child's Play Chucky in terms of its ability to change over time. Some people have argued for Final Destination, and I would urge those people to watch some of those movies again.
Yeah, no, what we're not going to do is we're not going to suddenly act like Final Destination was one of the best franchises of all the horror franchises of all time. It's the problem with the Final Destination movies is they never scare me. They never scare me. Whereas, I've cringed plenty of times. I've had to look away plenty of times. They definitely grossed me out, but they never scared me. Yeah. And I think that certainly the last two Evil Dead movies, really, I'm not saying they gave me nightmares or anything like that, but they were very effective.
Yes. I think there's a lot of repulsion to what's going on. And I also think they're deeply personal. They might not speak to everybody on that level, but they are attempting to. And I think deepening the emotional element of Evil Dead is one of the rare zags that is wholeheartedly earned. Because there are many things about that tridge of Evil Dead movies that I love. They are great. This is not in any way, shape, or form me saying that they're bad and these are good. No. They are uniquely their own kind of good.
That's the thing. That's what makes the franchise so solid, is that each one is trying something. Now, yeah, you could say that 2 is basically the first one redone with a higher budget. Fine,
yeah, sure.
But from that point on, each one is trying something a little different.
Yes,
and which is funny to me when people get so offended that this one doesn't have Ash in it, and it's like, well, why do you want to keep seeing the same fucking movie over and over again?
Yeah,
and technically speaking, Ash is in these.
Yes, technically he is there. He's shouting in the background of a record because he's time displaced. And he knows that speaking the words from this fucking book with teeth is a bad idea.
And you know what? I mean, he executive produced the movies. He's fine. He likes these movies. Shut the fuck up.
He loves these movies. He loves these filmmakers. He loves that it's transformed into something different and he's still involved, and they're worthy and they're fun and they're grisly and they're an experience. Like, all the producing team here, Raimi, Tappert, all of them are going to expand what Evil Dead can do. And I think they've been very, very successful along those lines. And as a result, it's not as easy as a Final Destination, which is just a formula. I would put Final Destination more along the lines of a Friday the 13th, a franchise I love and adore, but I have a very realistic view of what Friday the 13th is. I don't need it to be deep, and I don't need it to be the best or the grandest or the greatest. I want it to be the best of whatever it is in that moment. And I don't know if we'll ever really get back to that. Oh, wait a second. They're doing a fucking series out of that, Gina. Are we going to have to cover Crystal Lake?
You know what? I have to admit, my enthusiasm level for it is nigh imperceptible.
Sure. I think of the three coming our way, it's the one I'm dreading the most, because I just don't think, and that's not to say that I would love to be surprised. I would like nothing more for it to be an absolute revelation, but I do feel real fucking bad for a whole group of people who came together to create a season of television and then were summarily fired. And then this zombie element kept going. Even though I like some of the people involved, I like the actors involved and whatnot, but I don't know, man. It sounded to me like A24, who knows how to do some things very, very well, probably isn't that great at running a TV show.
No, I'm thinking it's, I don't know. It's just like, what could you possibly do with it at this point? What could you possibly do with it at this point?
And yet, we did 3 seasons of Hannibal. A concept in which you could very easily say the exact same thing, which was why it was such a good idea to put the person who had created Hannibal in charge of Crystal Lake. And then seemingly like every other TV series he's involved in, it just crashed and burned all around him.
Well, you know what you said. Remember when we did the Friday the 13th reboot, and you said you were fascinated by the, how it seems to be at the town is quietly aware of Jason's murder labyrinth.
Yes, right.
And they decided to just kind of let him do his thing because
somehow some sort of pot profit participation is going on.
Growing, because he's growing some killer weed in his property,
sure,
and that's how the that's where the town's primary source of income comes from.
Well, it's lessening everyone's tax burden.
Right. Like so, I mean, I guess if you took that kind of angle where but I don't know. I just feel like you're going to be bringing on all these extra characters, and it's just like, I don't know.
Listen, I hope for the best. I'm not rooting for its downfall. I don't want to join the sort of.
Maybe it'll be great. I don't know. I'm having a very hard time generating much enthusiasm for it.
The last thing I want to do is join the hate industrial complex of automatically rooting against something that I'm supposedly a fan of. So I want it to be great, and I'm also just going to let it happen, probably without commenting on it in podcast form, maybe talking about it online in some degree. But I don't know that you and I need to get involved in an episode-by-episode breakdown unless we discover that it magically has all these hidden depths that we just are so surprised and enthused by, then I can't wait to talk about it. But I just don't like to join the hate parade on shit.
Well, no.
We have the bad movies we cover to get angry about. That's why we cover a Hide and Go Shriek or a National Lampoon's Class Reunion. By the way, the numbers on Class Reunion through the roof if the roof is located in your basement.
I think the problem is people are probably thinking we have made this movie up and it does not actually exist.
I mean, people have commented on it on Spotify and places, and yes, the movie actually exists, which is also hard to prove because it so much doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, you literally have to watch. You have to watch it on your phone if you want to see it. So that may be a pressing issue.
And I would argue people should not watch it. They shouldn't. They should just listen to the episode. Believe us, it sucks.
Yeah, every time we say, "Oh, please don't watch this," there's always somebody who's like, "Oh, I gotta watch it." I'm like, no, you really, really don't.
Whereas for something like The New Kids, which exists and kind of doesn't exist at the same time, it was met with a collective yawn. Like people were like, "What? Why? What? Why are you doing that?" And that's a good question, everybody. Why did I decide that The New Kids was something we absolutely had to cover, other than the fact that I had gone out of my way to purchase a fucking Blu-ray of it, which is the same problem with Class Reunion. It's like a sunk cost fallacy. I have to make these purchases worthwhile.
You gotta stop opening those bank accounts where they give you these like free DVDs that nobody wants.
Listen, I wanted the vacuum, a new vacuum, and I wanted a toaster oven, and I got National Lampoon's Class Reunion instead. What were we talking about again? Oh, that's right, Evil Dead. So yeah, you have the abandonment of the sort of entire family unit, and the fact that Ellie and her family is abandoned by a husband and father, and the only housing they have available to them is about to be torn down without any recompense. They are getting nothing out of it. They're just being told to leave before the building is collapsed on top of you. And then Beth shows up out of the blue, focused on her personal needs and wants, that there's this job that she's on the cusp of getting, and the fact that she is turned up pregnant is put a hitch in that, and she doesn't exactly know what to do. So Ellie's family's dynamic is about to change regardless, but it turns out that Ellie's desire to keep them together is about to be perverted in ways that absolutely no one could anticipate. And I think is another one of those fun inventions that can kind of only happen in an Evil Dead movie, and just other places it would seem trite or weird or wrong. And here you're like, yeah, sure. It's a El Su Monstro of this family is going to hunt the youngest member in the basement, and it's going to come off like Aliens. It plays like the third act of Aliens, Gina.
Yeah.
I think it's so fun.
They all feel so fresh, which is something you cannot say about almost any other horror franchise. There are some in almost every horror franchise that sag a little bit, and there are some that are just plain bad. Mm-hmm. But there are at no point, like in any of these movies, do you feel like these filmmakers are going through the motions, that they hate these movies but know they make a lot of money? It's all it's all made with real genuine love and care for the storyline.
And I feel like this is playing with the formula in ways that 2013 also played with the formula, in the ways that Army of Darkness plays with that formula, where there's so much that's the same and so much that's simply different, and hearkening back to different variations of itself, as much as 2013 is revisiting elements and taking them deadly serious in ways that even the first Evil Dead did not. This is doing goofy and popcorn in a way that is different from Evil Dead 2. It is not the same, and yet there are elements that feel very much in vein and in conversation with that particular edition of the motion of this franchise.
I mean, you've got a flying eyeball going into someone's mouth.
Yes, absolutely. And instead of it being comedic, that person chokes and dies on that eyeball.
It's horrifying.
It's horrifying. So it's all of these things are different and the same, and playing with form and playing with function in a way that elevates the material so that we all know to a certain degree what's going to happen, but it doesn't in such an unpredictable way that you get that exhilaration of not knowing what's coming next. And that's just so rare in a franchise. I just think when you're treading in the same waters, invariably you're going to create deep tracks that are hard to veer out of. And Evil Dead just manages to do it with aplomb.
If you're new to this movie, you're going to go into it and you're going to think, oh, there's kids this time. I guess it's going to come down to kids versus Deadites. And no, 2 of those kids fucking die.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, don't get attached to them.
Really do not. I don't know that this is a plotty movie where we have to like recount the plot because it's very simple. There's one variation to it.
It's just this family being put through the ringer in a number of horrifying ways.
Yeah. And those ways are fresh and new, but reflective of the past. The way that Ellie becomes possessed by a Deadite is practically a tree rape only by elevator cable, but also not nearly as sexual, but somehow kinkier. Well,
yeah, it's very, it's she's kind of tied up like bondage ropes,
right.
except it's elevator cables, and it's very visceral because, and also apparently this actress did a lot of the contorting herself, like
yes.
a lot of it was not CGI, but like you can hear like bones cracking and shit, and it's just it's very, very visceral.
That is the one element that I do sort of miss from its theatrical presentation to viewing it at home. Now I don't, I have a sound bar and everything, and it's a small space, so I don't need like a giant theater sound system. But the way this was sound designed in the movie theater was next fucking level. In terms of creaks and pops and the way the pipes would sound and the AC units, the way the crucifixes would clink together and the way the rubble would sound. It just was filled with these moans and whines, and it's a little flattened at home. That's the one point I kind of wish I had one of those highfalutin sound systems and whatnot. That being said, the work was put into this movie to elevate that, to really take advantage of technology in that way. And conversely, it's not over CGI. There's obviously some CGI in this, but as you mentioned, the actress playing Ellie is putting so much of herself into this character. And truly, one of those rare times, I think, Mia and the pit witch and the one lady in the basement from Evil Dead 2. But this is the longest you're ever with a Deadite is Ellie's corpse walking around. And she really makes that character a character.
Yeah, and the makeup in this is spectacular. Like, I swear to God, you could just like smell her corpse.
It's gross. They managed to make this apartment building as gross as that cabin in the woods.
Yeah,
and
like it's like I said, the risk of repeating it's visceral.
Yes, intentionally so. The tile feels grimy. The apartment feels cramped, although it's gigantic. I mean, Gina, if you lived in an apartment this big, it would be a mansion in New York City.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, is it actually that big? Because it seems like it's changing sizes sometimes.
That's true. They are warped. Well, but that's very akin to Evil Dead, in which a very, very small cabin at times seems vast, right? It has hidden depths and corridors you didn't know were there. It is both weaving in and out of the Evil Dead franchise history with a plum. It really comes alive. It's having fun with this, but also making you just squirm in your chair.
Right, exactly.
And, I have to give a lot of the props. As much as I find some of the American accents problematic, I do think the cast is really fantastic, from Alyssa Sutherland as Ellie. They have Lily Sullivan, who is not the one from Comedy Bang Bang. She's a different person. And then you have Morgan Davies as Danny, and they are so unique. And I was like, I know it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I know I've seen their face, and they're in one piece. Ollie made me watch the Netflix One Piece, and they're in that, and they are constantly mouth agape in that show. And I'm like, oh, that's where I've seen that person again. And even like the kid, the Nell Fisher, like that's a good kid. She's a good movie kid.
Yeah, she is. I mean, I do think it's sort of comical when Beth runs the what is it called? Not a juggernaut. What is the like the 3-person monster thingy? There's
they're calling it the Marauder.
The Marauder, right?
Yeah.
When she's putting it through the wood chipper. Why there's a wood chipper in this parking garage in Los Angeles, I have no fucking idea. But thank God it saved their lives.
Right.
But you have the little girl Cassie, I think her character's name is, just sitting there, just blood is just raining down on her little bit. So I'm like, that's your whole family, kid. Just like that's raining down on.
But the way this kind of recontextualized the blood shower sequence of 2013, as something more personal, because I just even an elevator full of blood, like seeing this both before and after seeing The Substance is interesting because they're obviously riffing on The Shining, but they're coming at it in such different ways. Yes, they're both comedic and they're both effective and they're both personal and they're both emotional. It just goes to show like a reference can just be a reference, or you can use that reference to elevate ideas by using them in a capacity they weren't meant to be used in the first place. And both The Substance and this managed to do that with iconic imagery from other films within a franchise entry here, and then a independent French horror film and body horror in the other. Like they're so vastly different, and yet they're riffing on a lot of similar, ideas and systems and themes. I really, really fucking love this movie.
I do. I think it's. I wouldn't recommend it if you are squeamish because it is pretty gruesome.
Yes. Yes.
And if you can't deal with seeing kids in peril, because again, they're not little kids; they're teenagers, but they're still children.
There is one legit single-digit child in this, and so from that standpoint, like my parent hackles are absolutely up to it. And I fell for the same fucking traps I did when I saw it in theaters, thinking these two kids are like, how are they going to? That's why they have the neighbors, so they have more of a body count. And then those neighbors just get mowed through.
Yeah, they just show up like, hey, we're here. Oops, dead.
Yes, and because these older kids do get it, Cassie is in legitimate danger throughout this. She doesn't have plot armor as far as I'm concerned, as Oliver is so apt to say whenever we watch something. That character has plot armor. I'm like, oh, okay. But also, he's so fucking good at story, Gina. He's like watching Andor with him is next fucking level.
Yeah, a lot of. I've been heavily recommended. Andor's been heavily recommended to me. I have it on my list of things I'm going to watch when I'm recovering from my surgery.
Sure,
so I'm
makes
looking forward
sense.
to that. But I mean, the thing about the Deadites that's been consistent throughout the entire series is they cannot be reasoned with.
Right.
You cannot appeal to them because they have no soul. Yes. They're pure evil. So, you can't do, oh, mommy, I love you, because mommy isn't there anymore. She has died.
In fact, more often than not, they're using that shell of that former person to torture the person who isn't turned yet.
Right. They're not in there anymore. So you can't have a big, dramatic moment of, the person switching back to themselves for like a moment. So like, yeah, there's no guarantee that this kid is going to be able to appeal to what's left of her mother or her brother or sister to not hurt her because there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Literally when Ellie says don't let it hurt my babies and collapses, she has died.
Yeah.
Like she's not coming back.
She is not. She might speak in that voice again, but she ain't there.
It's to fool them. And again, she's not doing a very good job Like it is obviously, I realize that Cassie does fall for it, but
Cassie's
nobody else does.
Child.
Right. She's a child. Yeah. But nobody else, everybody else can tell the difference. They can tell that's not her.
Yeah. Don't let the fact that she decapitates dolls and puts them onto sharp sticks fool you. She's a kid.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cassie's got a little bit of the Charlie from Hereditary syndrome, where it's like, okay, is this kid kind of off too before anything even starts?
Yes. That being said, she's not wrong, because Stephanie comes in very helpful.
She does. Yeah. She does.
This particular version of the Necronomicon, just for purists, is entitled the Naturum de Monto. And has teeth. I think it's the least interesting skin wise, and the most interesting design wise.
I need to figure out how to make like a teeth guard for very personal belongings.
Yes, and I think it's all interesting. I really want to get across how impressed I am by not the fact that it fulfills certain color by numbers elements of Evil Dead, but that it colors outside of the lines and makes something that is both familiar and vibrantly new.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it always feels fresh. I could watch these, all of these movies are both excellent standalone movies, and also work together in concert as well. They're all telling there's a through line through all of them that really holds up, while also still being their own individual and unique stories.
But you can also tell that Cronin wants to evoke certain elements of the franchise and wants to put them in and just vary them to a certain degree. Instead of a sudden oatmeal syndrome, we get sudden oatmeal water syndrome. It's less viscous, but no less disgusting.
Yes.
And as such, it plays with that throughout. That, I'm cutting my face in the mirror. No, this time I'm eating glass and swallowing it. It just, all of the tortures, all of the, I'm doing this to do this because I can. And, when Ellie wakes up, like, she's burning in hell and you're going to join her. Like, they're very personal, the way they go after people in this. And
there's a lot of oh God, what was it was a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, the magic sword or something like that, where someone saw like the sort of like a projected image of a wizard, and it was like, and the wizard's like, just trying to freak you out, baby. It's pretty much like that. I mean, these demons are just trying to freak you out, baby. Then they're going to kill you. Yeah. Then they're going to steal your soul.
And then, yes, you're still going to be dead by dawn. I really am consistently surprised and enjoy everyone's personal take on Evil Dead and the way they're trying to morph it without simply recreating it. I think that's the most impressive part, that they've been able to pull off this magic trick almost every single time, to both create a formula and divert it and make it unpredictable, yet, scratch that particular itch, as it were. Speaking of which, I again forgot about the cheese grater until it happened. And I'm scarred.
Can I tell you that when I reviewed this, I actually went to a critic screening of it, and they gave out swag, and one of the swag was a miniature cheese grater.
Yes, understandable. I think the fact that this has found a way to make the everyday something that can bite you in the ass, like that, just it tells me that you care. It tells me that you wanted to make something that it wasn't just scary, or wasn't just a gross out, or wasn't just a cartoon, but it was all those things and a little bit more. I really enjoyed the inventiveness of this particular outing, and that it makes you feel unsafe.
Well, I mean, we didn't even mention how like this movie hits the ground running with its introduction.
Right.
Which has characters we basically never see again except for this girl. At a cabin, you get a scalping in like the first 3 minutes of the movie.
Yes.
And you get some dude getting his head cut off with a drone, which is good because he fucking deserves it.
No, that dude has it coming. He has a beer holster. That's not okay. I do love that his head is ripped off, but not from just the top part of the neck, but practically from his traps. It's all of those two deaths are yanking based.
Yeah, and then you've got this absolutely, I mean, like when I saw this in the theater, that title card, I was just like pounding my armrest. I'm like, yes, we're in for a ride, baby.
And then it delivers on it. Like, it would be one thing if it was just a high point of a great title sequence and then it was just average after the fact. I think it finds ways to live up to that opening over and over again. And then when the same cue happens at the end that evokes the Evil Dead ending of 2013, it just really feels like care and thought was put into all of these entries. And they've found a new way to present Evil Dead. And I think that's what's so exciting about, next year we're going to have a new one by the guy who made that Infested Spider movie. And I can tell you, have you happened to have seen that? It's on the shutters.
I don't really like anything having to do with insects.
You will not like this movie because it has everything to do with insects and it fucking knows it. If you don't like spiders, oh boy, is it going to exploit that.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm probably not going to watch that one, but I have heard of it.
I can tell you that filmmaker knows how to torture people. And I found it particularly unnerving how people are tortured via spiders, their bites, and eggs, and the whole fucking schmear in that. And I can only imagine what he's dreamed up for Deadites. And as like, oh, this is an interesting thing. I don't know what the dynamic's going to be necessarily, but it's interesting that we keep opening it up to unexpected delivery systems of Evil Dead. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that, particularly, there's undoubtedly a lot of pressure from somebody taking on an Evil Dead movie because again, the quality has been so consistently high.
Yes.
You don't want to be the one to fuck it up. You don't want to be the one to make the first bad Evil Dead movie.
And it's helped the fact that the people who developed the concept to begin with, that Raimi and Tappert are involved in this, and that they shepherd and they protect these filmmakers and allow them to explore and don't make them feel like they have to do one thing over the other. They're choosing filmmakers who want to challenge what an Evil Dead movie is, and they know that they can weave in Evil Dead moments and tropes in unexpected ways. They trust their product. They trust their creators. That shows in the final product. Any other final things we need to say about Evil Dead or Evil Dead in general, Gina, as we wrap up season 5 of Kill by Kill?
I mean, of all of the franchises we've covered so far in this, if you were to tell me, well, we're gonna find another reason, we're gonna find a reason to talk about these movies 3 more times, I'd be like, great, I'm sold. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I at this point, 9 years into this, if I never watched another Friday the 13th movie again, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I am not okay with that, Gina.
I mean, I can watch some of them again. But Halloween, some of them I can watch again.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, some of them I happily would watch again. Scream, some of them I'd be happy to watch again. Evil Dead, all of them I would watch again anytime, anywhere, any place.
But we very rarely ended on 2 absolute high notes, right? So for vampires with Sinners, I don't think you can argue that there has been a better modern vampire movie. That said, The one that was previous to this was fucking Nosferatu, another amazingly good vampire movie.
Yeah, look, I can't say enough right now. We keep belaboring this point. The horror movies are really our choice right now.
Yeah.
I will not will not acknowledge anyone that says differently. I mean, we're all entitled to our opinions, but if you are saying that horror is in a slump or whatever right now, your opinion is immediately discounted.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting so many different kinds of horror.
I don't know what you could possibly want that you're not getting right now.
It's something that only lives in your mind. Is my guess. You want something that's recreating your youth or giving you a feeling that you don't feel anymore and you don't want to evolve. I'm not saying that that you can watch Sinners and not come away with, that was fine. I can absolutely believe that for some people, it simply didn't connect for whatever reason, but it's just too good of a motion picture to not work for the majority of people.
There's too much going on with it and too many ideas for someone to just wave it away with whatever, it wasn't that good.
But I think two movies, right, that work best because they expand what you expect. It could be very limiting to just make a vampire movie, and it could be very limiting to just make an Evil Dead movie. And each of these films found ways to expand and use that supernatural, starting place as something to use to tell an emotionally true story.
Yeah, you have two filmmakers who took extremely unlazy approaches to tropes and themes and plots that have been done many, many, many times.
Yes. And so we wrap up season 5 with choosing your own Deathventure. And that's where we decide of the deaths featured in this particular motion picture. If you were forced to die in one of those ways, which one would it be and why? Scalped by pure force, Gina.
I mean, yeah, I'm thinking like none of these are good.
Decapitated from the traps up underwater. Tortured to death by elevator cable, possessed. Eye extraction, throat slashed. Choked to death on an eyeball. Thrown into a wall with such great force that your arm comes off. Stomach torn open, possibly impaled on a shotgun. That kind of happens off camera. Speared by Stephanie through the mouth and out of the back of your head. Stabbed in the bicep and in the heart. And then multiple of these Deadites are fused together into a monster and ground up in a wood chipper. What say you, Gina?
Oh, God, none of these are good.
No.
So I guess the injuries from being stretched in the elevator was ultimately what killed Ellie.
She's possessed and she's no longer in the house after that. Yeah.
You know what? As much as I hate this character, I think I just want my head ripped off because that would probably be like the quickest death.
I'm right there with you. I do not want to walk around with my scalp exposed. Sure. It's not going to be fun.
She was like technically still alive.
Yeah, she's wandering around going down to the dock trying to find help. No, I'm taking decapitated right away. No thank you to any of these other ones.
Yeah, no, especially I don't want to be dealing with throwing up Deadite goop before I die.
Like bug meal that's made of tattoo ink? Fuck that noise. I don't want to be anywhere near that. I certainly do not want to be sucked into a goddamn wood chipper.
Well, I mean, you're kind of gone
with
at that point,
my mom. Listen, Mom, I love you. I do, but I do not want
your mom and one of your siblings, presumably.
No, and I don't want that for us at all. No thanks. That just about does it. But here's the deal, folks. Find us on your socials. Talk back to us on Spotify and YouTube. Actually, if you can, you have a YouTube account, just follow us. You don't have to listen to us on YouTube, but upping our follower count gets us be seen and heard by more people, just the way rating and reviewing does. Talking back to us on Spotify is real fun. Reach out to us on Blue Sky, on Instagram, join our Facebook group, Threads. I'm even there every once in a while. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television and pop culture on my Substack, GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. I am on Instagram and occasionally on Blue Sky under Gina Does Things.
So what are we going to do for season 6, year 969 of...
Oh, nice.
Of Kill by Kill? It's very simple. We could have gone in a couple different directions, and we explored most of them. Certainly, we have not talked about Child's Play Chucky, that great franchise that's out there that we have not explored. We talked about one movie in the whole thing. Or for a while, we were talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre because they talk about one of the greatest franchises in history that has 1.5 great ones. With so many flail-ures. And
flail-ures. That's a great word. Flail-ure, particularly for that 2021.
It really is. But there was one horror subject that allowed us to do a whole bunch of different things, right? To a certain degree, vampires was the way to do so many, because we could do comedies, we could do dramas, we could do historical epics, we could do romance. We got to do all different kinds of movies with just vampires in them. And one thing just kind of leapt to mind. Uncle Steve. We haven't talked that much about Stephen King.
Yeah.
So
and there's so much. There's so much.
So we're going to talk some Stephen King because we're also in an era where we're going to get a shit ton of Stephen King coming our way, including a, It Pennywise prequel franchise series. So that's the third premium series that we could talk about upcoming here. And we're going to start it all talking about more Carrie. How is it going to work? We're going to re-release our 1976 Carrie episode in advance of Carrie, because if you haven't heard it or you kind of let it lapse or you want to listen to it again, I think it's one of our best episodes of all time. So I'm going to release that like on Monday or Tuesday. Then on the Friday after that, we're going to be talking about the 2 remakes of Carrie with our good friends Joe and Trace from Horror Queers. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about a rare Stephen King sequel, Carrie 2, another movie in which a tattoo becomes demonically expanded on somebody's body. So we're going to get neck deep in Carrie, in bloodbaths and exploding balls at pool parties. We're going to talk about it all. And guess what? Carrie's getting a fucking movie, a TV series on Amazon Prime, Gina, by one of our favorite horror filmmakers. Oh, boy.
And yet, no fat Carrie.
What can you do?
Not even you. At two, Mike Flanagan. At 2.
So that's what we got coming down the pike. Listen, you can have your choice of Stephen King podcasts, but they're not going to be Gina and I talking about Stephen King. And from that Carrie episode and the way we talked about Creep Show, we have a lot to say on the subject matter. And many.
And Christine, we've covered
Christine. Another one. That's what led me and Gina to really consider Stephen King, because some of the best episodes we've ever done on the show have been Stephen King related. So why not just fucking dig into it already? So
and there's so much, and if you love like us talking about like even the shitty ones, to quote Evil Dead Rise, there's plenty to choose from.
You know my philosophy, Gina. Once a month we got to talk about utter garbage. This my promise to you, the Kill by Kill listener. So that's still going to be happening. We're going to kind of go in order, but obviously, like, why would we talk about Cujo when it's not Animal Attacks April? So keep that in mind, but we are going to kind of filter our way up his, written works to more modern things as we go. And we're going to talk about things that are semi-inspired by Stephen King. And we're gonna still talk about plenty of fucking slasher movies and goofy. We're still gonna talk about vampire movies as we go. So that's not ending anytime soon. We're just expanding and coloring outside the lines with Uncle Steve. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this journey. Coming up here on 9 years of Kill by Kill. I never really thought that this would last as long as it did, and I would still have fun doing it, but I do. I thank the heavens above that I have a friend like Gina that I can talk to once or twice a week about great horror and goofy horror alike.
Yes, this has become one of the highlights of my life, and I very much look forward to it.
And more is to come, just with gap tooth and a main accent to add on to it. And so for myself and for Gina, bye-bye, everybody.